So I'm Greg, and this is Never a Dull Moment, and we are so glad to have you join us today. We are very thankful to have Chef Tom Mullally join us. Chef has been in the culinary industry for more than 30 years. After graduating from Johnson & Wales, he's had the opportunity with his culinary expertise to travel the world and work in various restaurants and hotels abroad. He has competed in 6 American culinary competitions, ACF, and he was managed to take 4 golds out of those 6 and 1 silver and 1 bronze. He's also competed in 17 culinary competitions, getting 11 first place of those 17 with a combined 45 different awards from those 17 competitions. Now he is working as an instructor at the Culinary Institute here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. He maintains an amazing business. I personally have been a patron. It is Strand Catering. It's a personal catering company. Does it go from 1 to 99? Is there a variation?
I try to not go much over 150 guests.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And you can also find him judging culinary competitions locally. So first of all, thank you for coming into my home. It's not quite the facility you're used to, but hope our humble kitchen will be enough. Chef has graced us with coming in. He's going to talk about, first of all, I'd love to talk about like the role knives play in the culinary field as well as just for an at-home chef. Like, what do knives do to make our food world better?
Well, we obviously need them naturally for all our slicing and dicing, and I consider my knives my babies. They're the children I never had. I have a deep respect for knives, obviously, and good quality knives as well. There's a lot of different knives out there, as we know. But a good quality knife is definitely going to make your life a lot easier in the kitchen and important to have. Sometimes it's you're better off dishing out a little extra money for a higher quality life. If you take care of them, you'll have them the rest of your life.
So I know you judge competitions as well as you're a connoisseur of fine food. So I believe it, like texturally it makes a difference as well. Does it make a difference in, say, my cook time or how things cook, how they come out?
Yep, most definitely. Depending on the size of the cut. Naturally, if you're doing stir fries, say Asian cuisine, it's extremely important to have consistent knife cuts so that everything will cook evenly. As we know in Asian stir fry cookery, there's a lot of julienne and very quick stir fry cooking and woks and etc. So I always preach to my students how important it is to have your knife cuts consistent so that they'll cook consistently as well.
I think for those of us who cook at home, when I was first learning, I didn't realize when I got that one random piece, we were all waiting on that one larger piece to cook and we were actually overcooking the rest. So having a sharp knife to be able to make your job a little easier as well as knife cuts. But it has a lot to do with presentation, doesn't it? I mean, we eat with our eyes.
Most definitely. Most definitely. In all the competitions that I've competed in, and just as well when I go out to dinner myself, knife cuts are like the first thing I'm looking for. It's impressive if you know that a chef, he or she, is taking that extra pride in their work to be putting out some incredible knife cuts. I mean, you never get a second chance for a first impression.
Absolutely.
So when I go to a restaurant or I'm competing, judges are huge in the knife cuts, that degree of difficulty. And again, when I have that first dish set out in front of me as a customer, when I'm wining and dining, and I see some beautiful knife cuts on my plate, then I realize that chef, he or she, took a lot of pride in their work and went up that half a notch just to elevate my dish to a higher level with nice knife cuts.
Well, it's funny, you just mentioned when you're traveling, cooking, do you personally take all of your knives? You have like a knife roll or a kit that you carry, and then if you do you take I know you have some prize knives as well as industry knives. Does everything go, or is it just industry knives? And if either answer, why?
Okay, well, if I'm competing, then I'm definitely going to abroad, wherever the case may be. Then I'm definitely going to bring my entire knife kit, all my weapons, all my babies. But if I'm visiting family, flying up north, whatever the case may be, then I'm not going to bring my full arsenal. But I'm definitely going to always bring my knives. I have a feel for my knives. I don't want to use anybody else's knives. And especially my mother's, so I'm definitely going to bring them with me.
So I know that I personally have had the opportunity to sharpen the knives for you. Tom's a very busy man, and I know that you personally are trained in keeping your own knives. As I've sharpened various knives for him, he has some higher end ones, and I'm curious, does the higher end one make it in the culinary school or to a restaurant? Do you worry about someone touching in it, falling and getting chipped, or just doesn't even see the industry if you're just a working chef?
Right. I definitely keep my eyes open on my own personal knives. I don't want them to walk away on me, but good quality knives is very important. And for me personally, I feel it's the balance of the knife. The weight of the knife.
Absolutely, you're going to be holding in your hand for a considerable amount of time.
Exactly, it's got to feel good.
So even though you're busy, and I've done that for you, do you at the Culinary Institute, do you teach the chefs how to maintain their equipment?
We do. We have tri-stones, sharpening stones, and we definitely teach them how to use a steel to get the burrs off your knife, to get a sharper edge. And I definitely recommend it. Obviously, depends on how often you use your knives. But like me personally, using knives constantly all the time, I'm going to get them professionally sharpened from you yourself 2 to 3 times a year. When you go to a good knife guy for sharpening, they're going to last a few months.
He actually has a lot of knives. So, if I've sharpened a chef knife for him, he has the same knife so many times. So when that one is done, not only do you have different knives in the room, like I say, one's on poultry, one's on fish,
right,
but at least when one is done, it goes away and he doesn't have to immediately get it sharpened. He has another backup.
Yeah.
And you've acquired a lot of knives. We'll go over it later, guys, but he has a lot of knives with it. And some of these you might consider them specialty. A lot of us knife nerds have them, but there are some knives he has, I can guarantee you don't, because it took a lifetime of sharpening and shaping to kind of make the knife from what it once was to what it now is. So I definitely am looking forward to you demonstrating some knife skills. So because we have the different types of people, the at-home chef, definitely seeing some of the things that the at-home chef should be able to do, and then maybe you'll point out when you're doing something more advanced that maybe the at-home chef doesn't need to do, but this is something you expect a culinary student or a chef to be able to do.
Ironically enough, I actually teach a knife cutting class at the college, and currently I'm teaching freshmen. So a lot of those freshmen are coming in, and some have never even held a knife before. So it's my job to show them how to hold a knife correctly and how to slice and dice correctly so that they don't lose a fingertip. And actually for their final exam, they actually have a timed 60-minute knife cut exam with about 7 to 8 different cuts on it.
And so with you saying when the student gets to you, would you prefer that they had some experience at their home, or you maybe not, or would you prefer them not have picked up bad habits that you have to untrain? Would you like them to be completely ignorant, you get them for the first time, or at least kind of know their way around a knife?
A little of both, to be honest with you, but it's definitely a plus if they already have some knife skills as opposed to me showing them from start to finish. And I'm actually going to do that anyway, whether they have small knife skills, medium, or higher knife skills. I'm definitely going to show them my way. But it's always a plus if they have some skills as opposed to coming in cold turkey, so to speak. But I definitely teach them safety. That's a big part of my kitchen. We're working at the college or anywhere cooking with hot items and sharp items, so safety is definitely a plus.
So, guys, we are very fortunate. He's going to demonstrate some knife skills, some different looks of food, some textural differences in the food. So we appreciate that. And so some of these things you guys will know, some it'll be new for you. So, and we will definitely kind of close in later on in the video to show that. By the way, a lot of the different knife manufacturers he carries, I'm going to have links in the description. There's different companies. He has a wide variety of knives. I also wanted you to know that the culinary school that he is a chef instructor at, I will have a link in the description below in case you're looking to attend. And then if you're within his range and want to get some catering, there'll also be a link in the description. Please, if you're finding value with this video, don't forget to hit that like button. It tells YouTube that you like the content. And please hit the subscribe button because Tom is the second interview that we have. We have another 8 interviews planned. We have some great things happening. We're so appreciative that he actually came into our home. So please enjoy Tom at work. And I'm just going to let him ad-lib and teach you guys what he wants to know. Thanks, Tom.
Excellent. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. So I'm going to start off with a red bell pepper. And you can see it in the camera here. I just took a whole red bell pepper, cut it in half. And what I want to do to get a nice julienne is to remove what's called the pith right here inside of the bell pepper. And this can be slightly bitter as well. That's another reason I like to take it out. I mean, it won't kill you, but it's a chef thing, just a personal preference. But I'm going to show you how we can remove the inside in order to make a beautiful julienne. So what I do, once I cut it in half, I'll take the seeds out. And then I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to remove the inside. So now you can see a huge difference in that compared to that. And once I'm doing this, you'll be able to see how I can get a nice julienne cut, a small dice, a brunoise cut, whatever I'm in the mood for. So now I have the inside removed, and you always want to curl your fingers in, and this would be like a nice little julienne. And you can just see how much nicer the julienne looks when the inside is not there, as opposed to if I did a julienne this way. Now you can see a huge difference in the knife cuts. So if I'm in competition, you know, what am I going to go for, this or that? I'm definitely going to go for this with the inside cleaned out. Just a huge difference for eye appeal, and the judges are going to consider that a plus for sure. So you can obviously do a julienne. There's different types of cuts out there. I'm going to show you what's called a lozenge cut, Lozenge. And in simpler terms, it is a diamond cut. You could make that diamond cut as small, medium, or large as you'd like. So I've cleaned out the inside of the red bell pepper in this case. I've got straight cuts. I want to have a situation like this. And now I'm going to, we have a straight cut like this, or you have on the bias at a little angle like that. So I'm going to take it on the bias and make these beautiful diamond cuts out of it, also known as a lozenge cut in chef terms. So here's your beautiful diamond cuts right there. And now you can imagine what that would be like for a nice little plate presentation. And depending on the size, the width of it is going to affect the size of the diamonds itself. This is definitely one of my favorite cuts. I like the little diamond lozenge cut there. And you can actually do that with any type of vegetable, pretty much. Carrots, potatoes, whatever the case may be. So just a few cuts right there to show you. And now, if I take a carrot, and I've already peeled the carrot, we want to square the carrot off on all four sides, like this. And this is exactly what I'm going to show my culinary students next week, every time I'm there. We are constantly practicing our knife cuts for their final exam. So you want to square the carrot off. And once you square that off, you can do various cuts with it. I can cut small, thin planks. And by doing what's called a plank right here, I could get back into the julienne if I'd like. Here's a nice julienne carrot right there. I could go back to the lozenge diamond cuts if I'd like. And again, it's just endless. And that's what I love about culinary arts, our hospitality industry. I feel like I'm in an endless learning profession. So there's the lozenge diamond cut once again. And the French, they started culinary arts, so they've taught us a lot of cuts, so every now and then there'll be some French words coming out, but the next thing I'm going to show you is what's called a bâtonnet cut. And the key to a bâtonnet cut is the width of the cut of the carrot itself. So that's about the width that you're looking for right there. And then after that, we're going to do one cut just like this. And this would actually be a nice bâtonnet cut right here. So again, they eat with the eyes first. You know, you could do a little design, stack them, whatever the case may be. But a bâtonnet cut is like this right here, and we've done the lozenge cuts as well. So we want to have some knife cuts.
Very nice.
For our guests. And then you can do what's called a small dice from the bâtonnet cut, and then we get into medium dices, large dices. A small dice is a 1/4 inch by a 1/4 inch. A medium dice is a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch, and a large dice is 3/4 inch by 3/4. So anyway, once we have our bâtonnet cut here, we can do a nice small dice. And this is one of my lines. I always tell my students what I'm looking for is beautiful, three-dimensional looking Rubik's cubes, in a sense, of food.
I myself had the opportunity to do this. I had made a dish and I did this type of a dice cut with pumpkin, butternut squash, actual mushroom, and pancetta. And so when everything was plated, it was plated the same size. And I definitely noticed that visually it was more appealing to have everything symmetrical.
Totally agree. Aim with the eyes first, as they say. And again, it's showing that that person, that chef, cook, is taking some extra pride in his or her knife cuts. So we can do different sizes naturally.
Now, people refer to, like, would it be the medium or the large that they use the term rustic?
Rustic cuts in a sense.
Or just more raw, maybe?
Yeah, more raw, exactly. Yeah, more rustic. Not as defined, shall we say. There's a lot of cuts out there, and there's a lot of different knives for different cuts. This knife right here is called a Tournay knife, Tourne, and we're going to do some Tournay yellow squash. So we've got a yellow squash here. I cut the tops off. I have it about 2 inches long, and what denotes a Tournay cut, it is a little football shape, and we're going to show you how to do this. So I have the curve of the knife, the Tournay knife, that's going to help me to do this Tournay cut. And I always tell my students it resembles a football, or sometimes like your eye. If you're staring at somebody and the eye is going horizontally, this is almost what this looks like. So then we're going to cut off the excess inside here. And a lot of your flavor is in the skin. So we always want to leave that on for our yellow squash, zucchini, things of that nature there. So this is a Tournay cut for yellow squash, and you can do the same with zucchini, and it looks kind of cool if you put a couple of different colors together. If you had a zucchini, yellow squash, things of that nature. So all I'm doing is basically thinking of a football, making that cut right there to resemble a football, and then after that I'm doing all the excess inside.
So would you say that all the scraps that are left over end up in some amazing dish for the chefs in the back room after work?
Oh yeah, good employee meal, that's extremely important. You have to feed your staff.
There you go.
Depending on what things are, in stocks. And
they don't always get the Tournay cut given to them, probably.
No. And we always want to waste as little amount of food as we can. Utilize as much as possible. It's always going to help your food cost and that type of stuff. So it's very important to maintain some food costs. And so you want to make a profit. You can be the best cook, chef in the world, but if you can't crunch your numbers, you're not going to make it no matter how good your food is. And then I want to show you what's called a brunoise cut. And to do a brunoise cut, you actually have to start off with a julienne. We're going to use this carrot for that. My fingers are always curled in. We don't want to hit any part of our fingers when we're slicing and dicing, but you're much better off hitting your knuckle as opposed to the fingertip. Lots of times, first week of class with freshmen, knife cuts. I'm playing a little bit of EMT. No major cuts, gratefully, but every now and then I get a couple of Band-Aids going out.
I'll let you know that some of the some of the knife stores, when they send nice knives, they send Band-Aids with them.
Yeah, you have to have it for sure, just in case. Undoubtedly, it's going to happen every now and then. And this is called a brunoise cut. And a brunoise is extremely fine. It's 1/16 of an inch by 1/16 of an inch.
So all of the cuts that you're demonstrating right now are cuts that are going to be on that test that you had?
Correct. Yep. They do have a 60-minute timed knife cut test for my particular class. It's actually called Kitchen Fundamentals, and it's new incoming freshmen. Us old chefs won't be around forever, so I'm trying to sculpt them for the future.
I can definitely already see that there'll be a textural difference in dining between the finer piece and the larger piece. Is just the way it either melts in the mouth or creates a crunch.
Yep, exactly. And we're big about textures as well. In order to be a chef, you have to be a chemist. You have to coincide those flavors together. So we're looking for well-executed food as well as well-balanced food with different textures. It's nice, depending on the dish, get a little acid in there from fresh squeezed lemon or vinegar, whatever the case may be. Sometimes a nice little crunch is good.
Textural difference. People don't understand. If you have the exact same running texture, then it's just a continuous kind of monotonous thing. And already on the cutting board, if you had prepared each of those different things, not only would they have each different cooking times, but each different texture experiences in the mouth, so to speak.
Exactly. That mouthfeel, you want to make it right. So I'm going to take a potato now, and I'll show you some things we do with the potato. And the potato would be the same as the carrot, meaning we're going to square it off. So that's the first thing I'm doing right here. And once you square something off, whether it be a potato or a carrot, you can get some beautiful cuts out of it. So if I wanted to do a julienne potato, and this is a Yukon Gold potato, one of my favorites. I feel they're a lot more flavorful than a regular russet potato that we use for our baked potatoes.
And that's a little starchier of a potato.
Definitely, Yukon Gold is known as a starchy potato. Me personally, I use Yukon Golds only for my mashed potatoes on Thanksgiving Day, whatever the case may be. So I have these planks here, and you can see, they're very thin. That's the only way to get a julienne, and I've got the fingers curved in.
I noticed you're doing a rocking technique. For the viewers who don't know that might be an at-home cook, there are definitely some people who chop straight down. I noticed that the knife you're using has just a very mild belly. It's mostly flat on its belly with a slight curve towards the front. And you're able to get a rock out of that. But there are other knives that have more of a pronounced belly for rocking. Do you find that you are mostly a rocker? And could you show us the difference between a rock and a chop?
Okay, I'm always definitely rocking it. The way I look at it, as chefs, it doesn't take long for us to get in the weeds, so to speak, to get behind the game. So I always preach to my students and teach them that rocking motion. All the weight is in the hind part of your knife. This is designated the hind part of the knife,
yes,
H-I-N-D. So you want to get all the weight in the first couple of inches right here of the knife. So when you're doing the rocking motion, my knife is never leaving the board. It's constantly on the board, so to speak. So that means my knife cut's going to be a lot quicker and faster. If I'm doing a chop and then it's leaving the board, and I'm taking the knife cut off the board, the knife off the board, then I'm losing valuable seconds. Seconds turn into minutes, and minutes turn into hours.
Yes, sir.
Next thing you know, the chef is in the weeds. So if you keep the knife on the board without ever taking it off the board with the rocking motion, your knife cut's going to be a lot quicker.
Does the culinary school or restaurants in general use an actual cutting board versus steel, or what is the material that you generally are cutting on in a restaurant?
Well, there's all kinds of cutting boards out there, as we know, but generally, boards that are wooden are nice. I like a wooden board, but then you have to be careful, after a period of time, it's going to hold some juices, food, whatever the case may be.
So sanitation might be an issue.
Sanitation, yeah, exactly. And at the college, we have 160 students and a lot of boards naturally. So we actually soak them in bleach water overnight once a week, like the last day of the week.
Good to know.
Yep. And now we have the lozenge cut going right now. Again, our little diamond cut. We've got some julienne. And from the julienne, you could do a brunoise cut as well. And it's endless. I feel like I'm in an endless profession. Food is constantly changing, and I'm learning something new every day. I truly do.
Now, I told everyone that we're going to be showcasing some knives you have to your right later.
Okay.
And you have a variety of 10 to 12 different styles of knives, wouldn't you say?
I do, yep. Knives are expensive, as you know, and growing up in my younger years, I didn't buy all my knives completely in one shot. I kind of got them throughout the years. And you kind of stated earlier in this interview that I do have about 4 or 5 different fillet knives for fish. I've got 5 or 6 different boning knives for meat. They're all a little different, and again, they're like tools of a mechanic. You can't do the job of a wrench with a screwdriver. So it's important to have an array of different knives as well, I feel.
Now, I'm just curious, now that I'm watching you, I noticed that most of your knives are Western handled. Have you used the Japanese handled knife?
I have, and I do have a few. I've got some shuns, I've got some globals.
I think that they still have more of a Western handle to them. I didn't know if you were acquainted with more of an octagonal shape handle, and I obviously your preference is a Western handle.
Yeah, and that's the thing, it's a personal preference. So it doesn't mean it's right or wrong in a sense. It's definitely your personal preference. The feel of the knife, the handle is for me is very important, and the balance of the knife as well will go a long way. But I do have a bunch of different knives that I've accumulated over the years, and again, knives for a chef are like tools for a mechanic.
I don't think some of the people got to see earlier in preparation for this video, you did end up using your steel for the knife. The steel is something that a lot of people have in their home. They might not know how to use it or when to use it or why they're using it. So why did you steel the knife before you began your prep today?
Okay, well, I always want to have a good edge, and you'd be surprised, Greg, you can get hurt more with a dull knife than you can with a sharp knife, ironically enough.
And I'm just showing the viewers right while I'm behind you We have a honing steel. This is a ceramic rod. There's a difference in their hardness. And we'll definitely have other videos coming up where I'm going to showcase why you would use one or the other. I am a Japanese knife user. The Japanese knives tend to be much harder. Some of the Western knives tend to be a little bit of a softer metal. So using a super hard steel on a Japanese knife, or even a lot of times this honing rod, can actually be too hard. And I've seen people, they don't understand it. They actually go in a downward force on the rod and they're not lining it right. And they can end up chipping their much harder knives. At least with a German knife that's a little more forgiving and a little more flex. Those tend to be tougher in the sense that the softer metal does have flexibility, which is nice, say a round bone. It has to be sharpened a little bit more often, but you did get the flexibility. So you can hone and just kind of go at it versus a Japanese knife making contact with something so rigid could chip your knife. But again, we're gonna have another video coming up where we demonstrate all that. I just wanted to go ahead and let our viewers know that those two different things existed. And you did that before you did prep today.
Yep. It definitely takes the burrs off your knife to give it a better edge. And you start here and you want to end at the end of the knife there. And then you want to go to the other side here and here. So, the more you do it, the quicker you'll get at it. But again, you see me starting at one point of the knife and I'm finishing at the opposite end of the knife. And then after a while, the speed gets a little quicker and quicker. It's like second nature for us chef guys that have been cooking a long time. But it is important to periodically use your steel. It'll definitely help your edge.
Yes, sir.
So that knife doesn't slide off.
Is there anything else that we can provide for you now?
No, I think we're in good shape. I'd like to do one seared chicken breast dish with a heirloom tomato relish. Just to show you what beautiful colors and knife cuts will do to food to accommodate it.
So absolutely.
All right, so I just figured we would do a simple seared chicken breast. A little plating. We'll show off our knife cuts, our colors and flavors. So I had a chicken breast and I put a nice flavorful dry rub on it. It's endless. There's so many rubs out there, as we know. And I'm going to use the same pan that I seared and cooked the chicken breast in. I love the yummy goodness that sticks to the bottom of the pan. We'll kind of deglaze it in a sense. We're going to keep the nice yummy juices of the natural chicken breast that we did. So we're going to melt our butter. And again, when you sear or saute something, the definition of saute is high heat, minimal oil or butter, whatever the case may be. So you want to get that nice golden brown sear on that. And what's the purpose of searing? Searing, when you sear meats, when we put a ribeye on our gas grill, our charcoal grill in the backyard, the purpose of searing, it actually acts as an insulation. You do a nice sear on both sides, your filet mignon, ribeye, chicken breast, whatever the case may be, and that's going to seal in the juices so our product, whatever it happens to be, will stay nice and moist for us. So we've got some fine brunoise diced garlic and shallots. Chefs are big into garlic and onions, as we know. I think pretty much everybody likes it. So I've got my garlic and shallots going. I'm kind of sweating them, which means we're going to keep them translucent. I'm not going to get too much caramelization in there. And it's a personal preference depending on the product. Some people may use straight olive oil, some may use butter, some may go half-half, a little olive oil, a little butter. In this particular case, we just took some whole unsalted butter. We've got our garlic, our shallots, beautiful heirloom tomatoes, grape tomatoes, nice colors and flavors. I always preach to my students, no bland food allowed, so we're going to hit it with a little salt and pepper. Bland food does not impress. We're always looking for the wow factor as opposed to the it's okay factor. We want to amaze our guests, and we know that nowadays food isn't the cheapest thing out there, so there's nothing worse than dishing out some hard-earned money for a mediocre tasting product. So this is very simple, heirloom tomato relish. Look at the beautiful colors and flavors that are in there. We started off with our garlic, shallots. We sweated them a little bit, keeping them translucent, not too much caramelization. We added our heirloom tomatoes, and then I threw a little scallion in there for color and flavor as well. You could put an herb in there if you wanted to get into basil, dill, anything of that nature, tarragon. It's a personal preference. So now that we have our seared chicken breast over here, we are ready to plate. So we've got a nice sear on our chicken breast. As you can see, we've stacked some of our blanched potatoes. We're going to hit it with our heirloom tomato relish. And me personally, again, it's a personal preference. I don't want to cover the entire chicken breast, the main protein. I want to show off some of that beautiful sear that we've acquired. And that's just me. So I like to do like a medium-sized line, so to speak. So you're not totally covering the chicken breast itself. They eat with the eyes first, as they say. So by doing this, I can see all the natural colors and flavors, and I'm seeing the nice sear on the chicken breast as well. And that's what we're going for. And we have a little bâtonnet cut here of our carrots. The dish is really starting to come alive, as you can tell. They eat with the eyes first, as we know. Our colors, flavors, it all adds up together. We've got our little lozenge cut going here, our diamond cuts.
So again, just a big textural change. I can imagine how much softer the sauteed, smaller dice is going to be versus the larger, mouthfeel of the potatoes and the chicken.
Correct. It is endless, as we know. So I really love plate presentation. You can see the plate developing and really coming alive. And the beautiful cuts are really standing out now, and that's what we're looking for, Greg. And we've got our small dice here on our carrots. We'll put a few of them right there. And you can just really see the flavor of the eye appeal of the dish starting to come out. And there you have it. This is a nice balanced plate presentation. We've got our seared chicken breast. It's topped with an heirloom tomato relish. We've got some knife cuts that we're showing off, our tournée vegetables, our small dice, bâtonnet, lozenge, our diamond cut, and somewhat of a medium to large dice on our potatoes.
So I can tell you from a home cook, I think I'm a little bit more advanced than your average home cook, but some of these cuts are cuts that the lozenge cut is not one that I had in my arsenal, the tournée cut. So those would be things that I personally need to practice. I don't know that everyone can do this. I actually buy vegetables to practice. I have cucumbers in there right now to practice peeling for like sushi, to make cucumber rolls.
Nice.
So I do actually get the knives, put in the time. It does take a while to learn this. I am a healthy eater most of the time. So what I loved about this dish was there's going to be flavor and texture, eye appeal, without me having to just drench it in a sauce, which would actually hide a lot of the work done by the chef here.
Agreed.
And so, guys, a lot of the work was done in the prep. Of course, a lot of the prep is going to be done with the knives. Knives are important because of the amount of time you're holding it in your hand so that it feel good. It's important that it be sharp so it can do the work easily so you don't hurt yourself as you're constantly pushing down. A good cutting board, which we'll talk about in a different episode, it has to do with absorbing the edge of the knife. The good thing about washing and sanitizing them is that they swell and they kind of heal themselves. Being able to maintain your knives so you can continue doing work like this. So I'm so glad and happy that we had Chef Tom. I'm going to throw in a little bonus moment. This is something for me that some of you guys will have. Tom doesn't know about this, but I'm going to hit him with a quick question. So let me surprise you guys with, for you at-home people, you probably don't have this. For a lot of you chefs, you do. This is what we refer to as a knife roll. Tom came in with a big, beautiful knife kit, much bigger than what I have here. So, and I don't want to hurt anything of his. So, I'm curious, having a knife roll to travel. This is designed that it can carry 22 items, which would be a lot. There are some that are for 8, some that are for 10. So, some of the things that we have in this knife roll, other than there would be knives, I have some plating spatulas. I have some to cook with, baking spatulas, a small whisk. And then, of course, something I'm not very familiar with, I've never had to do it, would be some of the different tongs for plating. Mm-hmm. And we have something to remove the bones from fish. So, again, this is just a little bonus footage. Other than the knives, like, first of all, what knives would you carry in travel? And then what do you see missing from my chef's roll that you say, Greg, if you travel to someone's home, what is missing?
Ironically enough, we give our students, the Culinary Arts students at the college, they actually have the knife roll as well. Like you said, it holds about 22 different items in it. My kit's a little bit larger, so I can hold more in it. And again, it's just a personal preference. But to get back to your question, your doing a good job here. I mean, we've got a little whisk going on, always important. Maybe we're gonna make a hollandaise or a béarnaise one day. And we've got plating spatulas. This is an offset spatula, which I like a lot.
Is there a different one that you should have? Is there a different spatula?
There's different sizes, obviously, and maybe you would have one with a smaller, thinner width here. And,
okay.
There's larger ones that are a little bit wider. Rubber spatula is always good to go. And you definitely need a vegetable peeler in there.
Okay, so I did not grab a vegetable peeler. I'm so used to kind of doing it with my knife.
Yep.
Are there certain knives you would definitely take with you?
Well, you definitely, if you wanted to have basics, so to speak, you definitely want to have a French knife, also known as a chef's knife, which is something of this nature right here. This is a shun knife, but this is a chef's knife or a French knife. There's two separate names. Here's your vegetable peeler, always really important. I'd highly recommend a paring knife right here for our smaller jobs.
And I think the definition of a paring knife is it's a knife you normally use when you're holding something in your hand. So if you're peeling a potato, or quartering citrus,
yep,
that's the paring knife is for things you do in your hand.
Definitely. And smaller items as well. And then a serrated knife. This is called a utility knife. It's extremely good for tomatoes, cucumbers, things of that nature. But you always want to have a little serrated knife, a bread knife. You never know when you're going to use it. And then obviously have a fillet knife in there. I've got an array of fillet knives. This longer fillet knife right here is when I'm doing big fish. If I'm breaking down a whole salmon, it's 3 cuts for me. I cut the head off, and one cut down one side, turn it over, second and third cut down the other side, and my salmon is finished. So this longer one here, it's a little sturdier. I'm going to use for the bigger fish, salmon, mahi-mahi, swordfish, things of that nature. This is a flexible fillet knife, Wusthof. This I'm going to use for my smaller fish and a fish that doesn't have quite as tough a skin. There's different fish out there that have different...
some have scales and some have
yes,
skin, and
exactly.
people don't know.
Yep. Triggerfish, local triggerfish here in South Carolina. It's one of my least favorite fish to fillet and break down.
They taste amazing.
They taste phenomenal, but it's got a really tough skin on it, similar to shark skin. It's going to dull your knives.
So do you actually have to cut the skin off?
Yep, you're going to take the skin off as well. So on a fish like that has a harder skin, a shark, a swordfish, triggerfish, you want to have a fillet knife that's not as flexible. You want it to be a little firmer.
Okay. And then we promised you guys to look at some very unique knives that have taken on a life of their own. Tom has some knives over here he's going to show you real quick.
All right.
That it took a lifetime of sanding and filing and whittling away to get to this point.
Definitely. Knives have come a long ways. We know, Greg, like these knives here in my hand, these are from Johnson & Wales College. My alumni graduated in 1987, and I still have these knives from 1987 with the wooden handles. They're sharp as heck. This is a fillet knife here for fish, and this is actually a boning knife for beef, and you can see how the blade has gone down over 30 plus years.
Absolutely.
Compared to the shun boning knife right here. But what I love about this boning knife, it's my baby. It's like that.
It's very rigid. If you guys didn't notice, there is no flex in that knife.
No flex at all. So it's great for Frenching a rack of lamb. Frenching is when we're scraping the bones clean.
Okay.
Or if I wanted to just bone out a whole leg of lamb, I can really get in there with this knife. So I love this baby. It's not going anywhere.
I will tell you guys, it is very unique to sharpen that knife. It took me a minute to kind of get in there in the little grooves.
But so it all depends on what you're working on, Greg. And here's another boning knife. This bad boy's been around a while, but for certain jobs, I just love that nice thin knife. And here's a shun boning knife that's fairly new, just a couple of years old. You can see a definite difference.
A difference in the make. And for you guys who don't know the shun product is more on the Japanese side. It's not only a more rigid knife. It is still a stainless steel knife, but the more rigid, the harder they are, the more brittle they can be. And so what's nice is the flexible knives have that flex to kind of go around corners. The more rigid ones, you do have to be a little bit more careful on bone that you might chip them. And we'll talk about the importance of hardness of a knife later. So we were very thankful today to have, he took a moment out of his day, guys.
Whose idea was 24 hours a day?
Yeah, he's a busy man.
We all are.
I have been fortunate to eat his food for a long time. I will always look up. I'm very fortunate also to pick his brain. He lets me bother him I try not to ask too many stupid questions and come out. But he took a moment out of his day so that you, the viewer, could learn something about his world, maybe incorporate some of these things into yours. I look forward to the comments. Please comment below. He will not necessarily be available for the response. If it's something I don't know, I will try to get the responses for you. We appreciate your commenting and liking this video, and it does tell us that you like what we're doing, so we look forward to having other guests in the future and continuing the interviewing process. We hope today was not a dull moment. As the name has always said, we're wishing that you have a never dull moment. Tom, I do want to
thank you so much
for taking the time.
Always a pleasure.
Guys, please check out the organizations that he's associated with. We're going to have links in the description below. And if you're in Myrtle Beach, I know that the culinary school actually offers dining experiences for you, so you can see what his chefs are learning. Again, we wish you also a happy New Year as this year begins. We have many more things exciting to have in the future. Thank you for joining the channel.